all preparation is good until you get punch on the face. I'm saying one should always prepare, because preparation is not about the idea. It's about preparing yourself and convincing yourself, can you do it?
Friends, if you're in a 9 to 5 job and have an aspiration to start a company, this podcast is for you. We'll talk to Manish Prasad, who worked at top companies in the US for many years, and then he took a leap of faith. He started an AI-based company here in Silicon Valley. So in this podcast, we'll talk about how to take a calculative risk and make a plan to jump into entrepreneurship. We'll learn about Silicon Valley. How is it about raising funds here? We'll also talk about some amazing sales strategies and impact of generative AI on jobs and startup ecosystem. So sit back and relax and watch this podcast until the end. You'll learn some amazing lessons to start a company and to get out of 9 to 5 job. So Manish, thank you so much for taking our time for this podcast. Really appreciate it. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Aditya, for inviting me. It's been, I think, a very hectic day. We are almost shooting at like 4:30
Yes.
after finishing all our daily meetings with clients and everything else. So yeah, very energized looking at the setup here and looking forward to this discussion.
So Manish, my objective today in this podcast is to learn about your journey, right? I mean, we all know that working in a full-time job is also not easy, right? But leaving a comfortable full-time job, right, at a very senior executive position and then jumping into entrepreneurship, that's a different level of courage, right? That's what we are going to learn about, right? Because there are a lot of people, not just in the US, but all across the world, they want to take a leap of faith into entrepreneurship, but somehow they don't get there, right? Plus a little bit about generative AI. I have seen you writing a lot about generative AI. So we'll have this casual discussion learning about your journey. So why don't we get started with a little bit overview on your journey, right? Where were you born and raised until you reached at this point? So why don't you take us through a quick journey?
So thank you. I was born in Indore. It's a small town in the central part of India, Madhya Pradesh, and I completed my schooling and my graduation, which is Bachelor's of Engineering in Electronics, out there with University of Indore. And after that, I worked with TCS as software engineer, and for about 2 to 3 years, and then MBA was at the top of my mind. Because I've been, studying about a lot of management courses and, trying to understand what is business like. So I did pursue my MBA from 2008 to 2010 with MDI Gurgaon. It was an exchange program. So we went to London and completed the second part of the course out there. And this was, the peak of recession. So this was the first set of discovery that I had in my career, that I wanted to be in consulting or investment banking, and both of those streams were not hiring. Consultants and investment bankers were like completely wiped out. Nobody was spending on had the discretionary money to spend on consulting, and so was investment banking. So I had to pick up the something which was related to where I wanted to be, and I chose to take up a financial tech role with a Mahindra Group company called Bristlecone. And basically, I got a lot of opportunity out there. About 10 years I spent with Bristlecone, and went through the rank from a consultant, FP&A consultant, to a SNOP leader. And by the time I left Bristlecone, I was leading corporate development, strategy, business operations, as well as leading the CEO's office. So in some sense, in hindsight, I believe I was preparing myself for this entrepreneurial role. I always wanted to do something in terms of starting something of my own. I remember way back in school, I opened up a very small business where I was selling these cards. Do you remember? There was these cards with cricketers and the stats, and kids used to love them, and they used to fancy about various. So there were cards for cricketers as well as various wrestlers.
Yes, WWE cards.
Exactly.
I was about to say that.
Exactly,
Yes.
exactly. So I used to buy them at probably like 2 rupees or 1.5 rupees and sell it to my friends for probably like a rupee gain or 50 paisa, something like that. And it was good. Life was good, literally, right? I was making reasonably good pocket money. We used to spend, me and my brother, we used to spend a lot of that. And until our teacher found out that, the kids in the class like literally playing with tens and fifties of card. I think that's when I realized that let me just stop it here. Otherwise, it's not safe, and things might get home, and my parents would not like it. So I stopped that. But there was this zeal to do something of my own, and it happened so that I had to take up a job and learn few things, which was in hindsight a good thing, because what a job forces you to do is basically be disciplined about learning business and learning about how to literally scale businesses, different sides of go to market, or building a channel or delivering to customers in time. So there are various interesting aspects of business that I could learn, and I thought I was preparing myself in this 10 years journey when I was working with Bristlecone. After that I joined a Goldman Sachs company called Epixon. I was supposed to lead M&A integration out there, and when I joined, the company was about 1,000 employees, and in about 12 months time it was 6,000, so 6 times growth. We acquired a lot of company and integrated them, and I was there for about close to 2 years, and then I was always looking at starting my own business, different ideas around sales technology, and talking to a lot of CROs and VP of sales about the space. Did a sales transformation initiative myself. So I realized that there is a big opportunity, there is a big space that I can now build my business, and that gave me the confidence to take the leap of faith.
Okay, no, that's amazing. There's one very interesting story that I have related to Goldman Sachs. I wanted to connect with their hiring division, their lead recruitment team, but I had no idea how to reach out to them. So I simply drafted a cold email to the CEO of Goldman Sachs, David, and I dropped him an email that, hey, I want to connect with your hiring lead, help Goldman Sachs in some way. If you could mentor me, that would be great. And he responded. Right, so cold email networking has always worked for me, and with Goldman Sachs, and now we work with them as a hiring partner. So,
pretty cool, pretty interesting, yeah.
So let's take a pause here, and I would love to learn about this 2008 recession duration, right? I've heard a lot about it, but definitely at that time I was in my school, right, and never had to go through that job search phase. How was that time for someone who was studying in school, about to graduate and about to look for the next job? Were there no jobs in the market, or how was that situation? How did you navigate in that time?
So first of all, you're making me look a bit older.
No, you're pretty young, but still getting that experience is very important. Yes.
So I would say in 2008 and 9, it was literally the doomsday for financial industry, right? Because it was a financial recession, so people were finding it very hard to get a job. We were also learning. We were, just fresh MBA graduates with a different way and different perspective to look at the world. It was difficult to find a job. It was literally really hard because people were taking whatever was coming their way. And but it was in some ways a good time to start companies, because I saw a lot of my friends became entrepreneurs because they realized that it is difficult to find a job of what they're looking for, and if there is a way they can sustain themselves for a couple of, let's say, 2 to 3 years journey, then they can understand what is the gap that is created because of this recession, and they can literally capitalize on that. So every recession brings an opportunity. As they say, never waste a recession, right? So it brings a unique opportunity, and anybody who looks at it with a different lens will realize that there is a lot of unnecessary expectation that gets created in a economic boom cycle, and even in 2021 and about late 2020, we have seen that the tech cycle got through a lot of boost, which was in some ways, too good to be true. Right? So these expectations get reset in a recession, and sometimes they do overcorrect, and that becomes a great opportunity for anybody who's looking at the whole phase sitting outside, at a distance, that here is my opportunity, because there are vacuums that gets created in these recessions, and you can actually pick up these opportunities and build businesses around, provided you can literally persevere through this phase, right? Because it's tough building a business in recession, but you build a very good business, which is good in fundamental sense, because it will be a business that will add true value to the clients, right? We'll look at a real business problem as opposed to just a Me Too, software company.
Yep.
And you will be very disciplined in terms of execution of this business, and that lays a very strong foundation for anybody to scale the business in a certain direction. And if you see all the great businesses, there's a lot of research available out there. A lot of great businesses were built not just in 2008 recession, even before.
Was also one of those, right?
Yeah, Airbnb, Uber, you named a couple of those, consumer tech, SaaS, software tech, right? A lot of businesses actually picked up after the recession. We had this wave of the smack wave of social mobility, analytics and cloud around 2011 to 2015-16. So a lot of businesses gained momentum after the recession was over.
So Manish, when you were in a very comfortable job, right, in terms of like the financial situation, right? I'm sure it did not happen on one day, like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to resign, right, and I'm going to jump into entrepreneurs. That doesn't happen in a day. How did you prepare yourself in the last few years? What people can keep in mind that, okay, I have to jump full time into business, probably some runway would be required, right? Some connections would be required. How did you prepare yourself? What was your preparation that, okay, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, I'm going to jump? Any advice for people who might be thinking that, okay, let's try something?
I think I'll start with the very famous quote from Muhammad Ali, that all preparation is good until you get punched on the face.
Okay.
Right? And I did prepare. I did prepare in terms of making sure that I have enough savings and making sure that I'm building a strong network. I'm getting a lot of feedback, real user feedback from the market, right? And the relevant folks. But you really cannot time it.
Okay.
That's my learning, and that's what I've been, learning from different entrepreneurs around me. Don't try to time it.
Okay.
If you think you have landed onto a good idea, spend as much time getting real user feedback, right? What might happen, and in fact that happened with me as well, is you will feed into your own biases. So I thought I had a great idea, and the way I was asking question to almost all my potential users were, confirming my own biases. So there's a very famous psychological bias or cognitive bias called confirmation bias, right?
Yes.
So I was actually conforming to my biases, and I realized that because while I was doing the research, the market was different. Everybody was hiring, and there's a great resignation wave, right? And within 12 to 13 weeks, literally 12 to 13 weeks, the market flipped from great resignation to great layoff, right? So we see everybody firing, and we were building a product which was supposed to basically incentivize sales behavior in the right direction. And after I left my job, I realized most of my potential clients were bailing off, because they were like, we are laying off salespeople, so we don't probably need this product right now, right? Our problems are around revenue. If you can help us grow pipeline, if you can help us improve our win rate, right? Let's talk. So I think what I realize is you should definitely do your homework. You should validate your idea. You should look for anchors to build business. That's always helpful. But be mindful that those anchors will be taken out without you noticing, right?
Yeah.
And you'll be on your own before you realize.
Yes.
And that's what pretty much happened with us. Now we're coming back in terms of a new business idea, but it's literally about, can you trust yourself, right? How long can you trust yourself? I think this is, entrepreneurship is the single most, I would say, profession, for the lack of a better word, where you get real feedback, you operate from first principles, right? Can I build a business here? There are no set rules.
Yep.
There are frameworks, there are guiding principles, but there are no set rules,
That's true.
right?
I remember, Manish, so when I left my job from Deloitte, I was like, it's a perfect moment, right? And I'll do it. And for the next 1 year, I was working on one like marketplace idea, which I thought was great idea. And you mentioned about confirmation bias, exactly same thing happened, right? I just chose an idea because I liked it, may or may not be the real market problem. And then for 1 year, I had a runway of 1 year, but after 1 year, I realized that I was standing at the same place. Even worse after losing all the savings, right?
Right.
And from that point, tried to start again, right? Understood the real problem, jumped into it. So I also tried to time it perfectly. It did not work.
It
right?
does not work. It rarely works. Yeah.
So basically, it's always better to consider that, okay, there might be another 1 or 2 years required extra, right?
I think it is better to consider that, and it is also, I'm saying one should always prepare, right? Because preparation is not about the idea, it's about preparing yourself and convincing yourself, can you do it? And instead of just jumping off, right? Because when you jump off, then, and if you still fail, then you would think, oh shoot, I should have prepared, right? And that was the reason. But when you prepare and you fail, then you realize what was the gap in your thinking when you were preparing for it, and you can improvise in that in that process. So you actually, kind of jump few cycles if you prepare, and that's where I would always recommend people to think it through, plan in terms of this, whatever business idea you have in mind, right? How would you plan for at least 3 to 4 quarters of execution, right? Plan it out. You may not execute as per that plan, but it will refine your thinking.
And being in the Bay Area, I think it helps a lot. You see a lot of entrepreneurs here and there, a lot of events. So that gives a lot of confidence, right?
Oh, absolutely. It does a lot of gives a lot of confidence, and it also introduces you to new perspective. Perspective matters a lot, right? Because sometimes you are literally struggling through a problem, and you meet somebody, and this has happened to me a lot of times, right? And they just give you something which is very simple but very profound, right? So I'll give you an example, and this is where I was like literally struggling with the idea of how do I improve the pipeline, and how do I basically boost win rates for my clients. So I was thinking about it, and I just ran about 25 to 30 people round of interviews with those guys, and I got some really interesting idea. Then I went through a second round of a disciplined pursuit and a scientific process of idea discovery, and I was able to see that there is a lot of market signals out there where companies are talking about their problems, right? It is just that companies which are selling don't have the patience to literally go through those signals.
Yeah.
So there are public companies which talk about their problems in their annual reports. There are Glassdoor reviews where employees are talking about their grievances, right? There are various Slack communities, there are various LinkedIn posts. So there are a lot of good signals out there which is not being synthesized in a way that can lead to solving problems. So if you think of a business, what is a business, right? Business is basically there is a buyer and there is a seller, and the buyer has a problem, has a pain, right? And the seller is able to get it. It's very important to just get it, right? What is the real problem statement? What is the real pain point? And then offer a solution which is unique and to some extent very relevant for this buyer at a price point which matters business sense, right? So if sellers can basically trace these signals where buyers are talking about this, listen, this is hurting, or go deep and discover these pain point, then they are actually solving somebody's problem, right? Versus selling a solution which may or may not be required in the market. And that's pretty much what was happening in 2021 and probably early part of 2022.
You mentioned about this selling mindset, and I remember one of our conversations where I asked you, Manish, like how to do sales, right? And as you have spent a lot of years in doing sales for these big tech companies, can you talk a little bit about what's a perfect sales process look like? Someone who's trying to sell his or her product in the very early stages of their company, right? Reach out to, say, a big tech company, some senior directors. What's the best way to sell their product? Because in the first few days, I think it's all about getting those first few customers who give you confidence, right? But I think most of the time what happens, you go there and you start selling what you have. Right? What's your perspective? If you have to sell something, how would you approach it?
So this process or this playbook varies at different stages of the sales process, right? If you are let's say building your company and you're looking for initial few customers, then you're looking for real users who can give you right feedback, customers who are friendly, who understand that the product is not matured, and you are also being honest to them that here is the current state of the product, but it will help you, and it is my commitment to make sure that it will help you, right? And they're placing a trust on the individual and the team, right? Then the product and the technology. Once you start to get real user feedback and you have accomplished the product market feedback stage, right? At that point of time, you want to scale it to more clients, right? And make it a repeatable process. So there are different sales motion. There is product-led growth. There is outbound, right? There is completely alliance-based or different channel-based strategies. And there is a combination of all the three, right? So think of it like a Venn diagram, right? And what happens is companies at different stage, depending on who you are selling to. So if you're selling a very high ticket item or a high value services, right, to an enterprise, then in that sense, you basically need to be aligning to all the three channels. Inbound or product led, you need to have outbound, as well as you need to have right connection at different alliances, because enterprises would look for it. If you're looking at low value services, right, then you can pick up one of the two bubbles and say, here is what my focus area will be if I'm selling to small and medium businesses, right? The moment you scale a bit, then you need to at least be present in two of the three bubbles, right? To scale your business, to scale your go-to-market motion. Now, this is all about prospecting and educating your client. There are different methodologies like MEDIC or SPICed or BANT, and different methodologies for qualifying a sales opportunity, or literally, going step by step as to how do you stage your funnel. Right? And for SaaS businesses, it is not just about the funnel, it is about where the funnel ends and you start focusing on expansion and adding impact to your clients.
Yep.
So there are different methodologies to basically execute a sales process, and it all starts with designing your sales process with a very thoughtful approach, but again being mindful that your sales design is an experiment.
Okay.
And you should be able to measure different metrics along with these experiment, right? So that you can make fine tweaks and changes along the way. Depending on which industry you are, what kind of services you are selling, you can pick up all of these, and there are various good, interesting articles and studies out there. It's become pretty much of a science, but I believe the important thing which is missing in all these processes and playbooks, and they're not. I mean, there are some companies which are doing a really great job of educating. Different sales process, but I think the customer's pain and how do the software companies or anybody who's providing a solution understand that pain, right, and talk to them in the same business language is the most important part, because that's where everything gets started. If you don't talk to your clients in their business language, they're going to delegate the next meeting or the next discovery process of the sales process, right? And that is where most of the opportunities gets lost. So we believe that it's very important to understand what are the problem statement and spend more time on the problem with your client, and then design your process accordingly.
Makes sense. Okay, so Manish, let's talk a little bit more about now your current entrepreneurial journey. How's it different? How's your current day different from what it was 6 months ago or like a year ago when you were in your full-time job? Is it more exciting now? Is it more challenging now? What are the differences that people can expect after leaving their job? Do they get like 15 hours of sleep?
Well, 15 hours of sleep if you can have a really great team, definitely. We are all looking forward to, and there are people who have been in this entrepreneurial journey who have been looking at for 30 years, they've never been able to get 15 hours of sleep. But having said that, I think the biggest difference is you now own your calendar, at least in the beginning, right? And that is very unsettling, because we're all used to meetings on the calendar, starting our day, and then maybe spend some time preparing for the meeting, and then having those discussion in those meetings. Now it is you who is designing the calendar, and you can't blame anyone. You have to be disciplined about it, right? You have to be very organized, super organized. In some sense, I literally block everything on my calendar these days. So if I'm going to have lunch at this time, I'm going to have lunch at this time, unless of course there is a client meeting. Right, so then I can just change the entire calendar upside down. But it's very important to lose time as an entrepreneur. I think what is also important is, when you are an entrepreneur, and this is happening with a lot of us these days, that we literally are really stressed out and burnt out. And sometimes, we work crazy hours. I think you were mentioning late night and early morning. Sometimes there's no concept of a sleep. So I think it's important to find our rest zones, right? Something that literally recharges us. Is there a therapy that you enjoy the most? And I would draw an analogy from champions, right? Sport, if you look at all the legends and all the great champions, they work really hard, but when they rest, and that rest is not a guilt trip that I'm not working. That rest phase is very important and very much needed to recharge you for the next orbit or the next phase. So I would say one thing I've found probably 6-7 years before, which is kind of a therapy to me, is to listen to some great books on Audible, right? And I literally go to X and I keep rereading the same book. Some of the great books I have read, just rereading them time and again. And every time I read them, I get a different perspective. I get a different learning, and that is therapy to me. Because after that, I'm charged up. I can go for another couple of hours.
Yeah. So regarding calendar, there was a time when I used to think that okay, my calendar is packed or like it's looking absolutely filled, so that means I'm doing a real work, right? But then I realized at some point that it's not necessarily true. And sometimes having your entirely packed calendar is also not good for your creativity.
Right.
Because you're just doing something, maybe like something that's getting like 30-40% result, but that was not allowing me to take time, think for creative solutions, right? Coming up with the new ideas, innovation. And recently, when I say recently, like 3-4 months, in the last 3 to 4 months, I've ensured that there are minimum meetings on my calendar, and I always recommend it to all of my team members. Like there's no point having filled up calendar. At least 2 or 3 days in a week there are no meetings. Gives me so much comfort and time to think.
Yeah.
Right? So that's very important.
That's actually a good habit. I've seen a lot of successful people do take like a completely one day out and just focus on one part of the problem and not do anything else.
Yep.
And force themselves to just literally go deep on that, right? I've seen some great founders who start their day by reading books.
Okay.
So like we have this tendency of starting our day with a meeting. They want to go slow on their day.
Okay.
They start their day, some few people work out, of course, and then few people literally start their day with reading a nice book and having a nice walk in the park, and then coming back to work and then literally being supercharged.
That's
So
a great idea.
I think it's important to find what works for you, and it's important to structure your day according to where your creative energy is like, because sometimes it's there are few people who are very creative late in the night, and there are few people who are very creative early in the morning.
Correct.
So find where your energies are.
No, that's absolutely true, for sure. Regarding, Manish, were there any hobbies or interests that you had prior to starting this business and now profoundly impacting your entrepreneurial journey? Anything that you now notice, okay, it's great that I did that for many years and now I can see that impact?
Yeah. So I think our first hobby was math when I was a student, and it happened accidentally. I was never a great student at math. I think in one of the exams because of one of my teacher did a mistake and I got like literally 100%, and I was not supposed to get 100%, and I did get it corrected, but that gave me a lot of confidence. So I then pursued math and it became a hobby. And I think thinking everything from a numbers perspective is definitely helpful as an entrepreneur if you have to be really good with numbers. Second thing is chess. I have been playing chess for a long time, and it gives me the ability to think from first principles, right? Ability to plan strategies, think long term, be empathize with the other side, right? As to what they may be thinking. So that's the second part, the second hobby that has been really helpful. Third has been writing. So I've been writing in different formats for a long time, and that is in some sense a good refinement of my own understanding of the problem. How do I read in different situations? That has helped me really well. Even if I have to lay out a business plan, I make sure that I use a Word document and I write in that. And the fourth one has been reading, right, which has always been a great hobby, irrespective of whether it applies to startup or not. I think it's a great life skill. Anybody reading in any format. And I think it's also a function of the fact that and many of us are like that I literally cannot live without consuming great content. Right? I need that high intensity content, and that has helped me to just hook on to some really powerful reading or listening to them time and again, right? Or sometimes watching some very interesting documentaries and movies and TV shows.
Like, okay, chess could be that useful, but when you gave me those reasons, right, like being empathetic about the other side, I think totally makes sense. And you mentioned about reading and writing. I think as an entrepreneur, you cannot survive without reading and writing. And if you want to create that social media, I think you're asking about, okay, how to create that social media image and all that, right? Presence is super important for an entrepreneur. That boils down to reading and writing. I'm very bad at reading new stuff, but whether you like it or not, I think it's a great thing to do. It's a great thing to do.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is these days there are a lot of new, interesting, consumable content ideas. Like you can listen to a book on Audible.
Yep.
And there's a very great book, and I'm sure a lot of people might know about it. It's called Atomic Habits.
Yes, I heard about it.
It's a great book, and by James Clear, and he talks about different ideas to basically multitask and pick up new hobbies and pick up new habits. So I think one thing I do is whenever I'm not doing anything which requires a lot of attention, I just plug in my earpods and listen to a book or a podcast on Audible.
People will be listening to this podcast as well, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So you talked about content, right? Consuming content and then writing it as well. That reminds me, I think, of some of the most famous point at this time, which is generative AI and ChatGPT. I definitely want to talk about it, learn about it from you. I've seen you writing about generative AI, and your startup is about generative AI. Right?
Yes.
So, Manish, please tell me, where are we in the journey of generative AI or AI? Have we reached the pinnacle? Are we just starting? Because when I look at AI and generative AI, after the launch of ChatGPT, a lot of things have changed, right? You cannot distinguish whether the written content is written by a human or maybe ChatGPT, right? How do you see it evolving?
I think we're just getting started because we've seen one modality or maybe two or three modalities, which is writing and or text and voice and maybe images, right? There's more text and maybe some images which are gaining a lot of adoption, but there is a lot of data which is not structured, which needs to be refined and processed and moved through data pipelines and feed into these models. So if you see, the models are still in the early stage. Now, whether we get to an AGI or something is a different question. But I think even in terms of making these models relevant for an enterprise use case, right, or a production use case, we have to do that journey, right? Because the models alone are not powerful. You need to combine these models with the right data structure, right, and keep feeding them the right data pipeline, and that's when it will start to become relevant for actionable use cases that an enterprise or a business might deploy. There are certain cuter use cases which are coming in, like writing emails and creating images from Midjourney, but nothing so reliable at this point of time, where you can literally take a piece of work and say, I'm going to replace this with a generative AI, and it will also give me the accurate output or the accurate responses that I was getting in the earlier world. Now, having said that, I think you had a couple of questions in your framing of the question. The second part of it was, do you see people writing a lot of content using generative AI, and how do you?
I do write some of the content using generative AI.
So I think of generative AI as your intern. That's how I also use generative AI to write my content. But I don't use it to write the content. I write the content, I use it to research, right, around different dimensions, different personalities. If I have to understand, link a certain use case to a sports psychology, right, or link a business use case to, let's say, chess and different ideas and strategies in chess, right? Then I would use generative AI to understand, but I would never write a content with generative AI, because as much as it gives something which is meaningful, you are losing your voice, and that's what you will do with an intern, right? Once you hire an intern, you will ask them to research on certain parameters, research on certain books, and do some of these things which they are good at doing, and that's how I treat generative AI right now. And I believe what is going to happen is there will be a lot of AI trash very soon, and people will get tuned out of, I'm sure this content has been written by generative AI and this doesn't sound like this guy, this doesn't sound like very genuine.
Yep.
So I have also written this post a few days before at LinkedIn that I think writing is one of the greatest invention we've had, like literally centuries ago, and it was a way to communicate our message to someone else, because once you write it down, that becomes yours. So I think in some sense I'm a bit worried that generative AI is taking that space, and it's important that we start communicating with our voice and our ideas and our thought patterns, and use generative AI to make it more interesting, right? Bring in multiple dimensions, enrich it. If people do that, then they will be more interesting, and there will be people who will be basically writing the entire content and the book and everything out of generative AI. My sense is they will not be so appealing. Like, if there are movies which are made by AI, sure, you might watch couple of, after a point you might be like, I need that human connection.
Very difficult to copy tone. A lot of famous writers on social media, people ask them, okay, are you actually writing this content because you seem to be so busy, right? You have a company of like 2,000 employees. Do you get time to write this much? And I've heard this from many influencers. They said, we have tried to hire a lot of people to do this stuff for us, but they can never get the same tone. That brings me to one more question. So when ChatGPT was launched, as a business owner, I was very happy, right? We all know like the API cost is really, really low, right? That writing is now super fast for a lot of business related things, but that also brings me a concern that a lot of people are losing their job, especially back in India or in many other countries, and also in United States. I have a relative who was making almost $3,000 per month by writing article for a few companies every month, was providing employment to about like 8 writers, right? Now every one of them have lost their job, every one of them have lost their work, right? Because there is ChatGPT available for free. What do you think about it? Like, what people can do to not get impacted by generative AI or AI in general in future?
I think there will be dislocation of jobs. It's unfortunate in some sense that there will be few people who will lose their job, and I'm not one of those who will say all positive things and say there will be like printing press displays so many people. It hurts, right? Whoever loses their job, it hurts. But at the same time, it also brings new opportunity. So it's, if you think it from a different perspective, that can I train myself using generative AI on a different skill, right? I've been writing for so many years. Can I use the power of generative AI to now write something really interesting and really unique? Right? Case in point, I've been writing business content. Now, can I use generative AI to combine business content with, let's say, a different dimension altogether, a Hollywood movie or a TV series or a sports psychology or like literally, how authors would write books, right? Can I combine these multiple dimensions and write something which is really interesting and can help a business? Can I use this content and use the power of generative AI to try and understand what my users would be looking for? Now, these are the stuff which will not be completed with a generative AI.
Correct. Still need to give that instruction, right?
Yet, right? The prompts may not work that. So I think it literally is about how imaginative you can be and how you can use your experience to take this as a technology and literally grow 10x out of it. So if you can think from that perspective, then it is really a great opportunity for whoever is building their business or building their agency or making themselves super skilled. So I believe anybody who is going to be using generative AI effectively will have superpowers. And I think you have to find your superpowers with this.
If you've noticed, Zomato writes social media content so amazingly, right? I mean, they write a few lines combining their product, which are mostly food items, with different businesses to attract them. And we wanted to write something in that creative manner, but did not have anyone in our team. And then one of our team members, he utilized ChatGPT, which simply gave prompt like, suggest us something that combines DoorDash, which is again a food delivery app, with one of our products, and make a quickie sentence out of it, right? And it gave a few suggestions, and we came up with a few great taglines and posted it on social media, tagged DoorDash. They saw it, they loved it. That's how we got our conversation started, right?
Right.
So that's how they can utilize it.
Right.
But yes, for those people, I think for some time, right, until they figure out, okay, how to utilize it properly, it might be a little bit tough time for some people.
I think that's a learning curve. So if
Yes.
you're skilling yourself with this technology, then I believe in future we'll have a lot of big businesses with literally very few employees, and we'll have a lot of these businesses. Right, that's what AI wave would create. Literally, billion-dollar companies with less than 10 employees, right?
Yeah.
And there will be so much of value which is yet to be unlocked, so much of use cases which is yet to be rewritten with the generative AI wave. I'm optimistic. There will be dislocation in between, and I think if people can think for themselves and scale themselves in certain pieces of generative AI or AI, in the long run, it could add a lot of value.
So, Manish, my next question is regarding your business, UpRev. First thing is, and again, you can choose not to answer, we can always edit, right? What is the purpose of keeping a business in the stealth mode? And it's very popular here in the Bay Area. There are a lot of founders. I recently met a founder of a company called Granico, and he came out of stealth mode after raising Series A round.
Right.
Not in pre-seed, not in seed, at Series A, right? And he was in stealth mode until then. What's the purpose, and when should entrepreneurs choose that option?
So I think it is literally a function of how ready you are
Okay.
as a product, as a company, right? So for example, we have been experimenting with a lot of ideas, and that's why we thought it makes sense to keep it in stealth mode, right? Once we get reasonably good use cases with client, and we can say with some sense of certainty that we have established a product market fit, then we can come out of the stealth mode. But the real idea why many companies or businesses in the Bay Area choose to opt for a stealth mode is because they are still in that product market fit phase where they don't want to just announce that here we are and here's what
Okay.
we do, right? Here's where our customers are and these are the product features. We're still experimenting because also understand that generative AI as a technology is new, and we are using that as a core technology, of course, along with a lot of engineering principles around it to offer buying signals to our client about which clients about which of their clients would be hurting,
Okay.
and how can they reach out to them effectively, grow their pipeline, improve win rates, and also over a period of time improve the productivity of the sales rep. Now this is not a simple problem to solve, and we need couple of iterations with a certain set of beta clients who's willing to invest time with us before we become comfortable that we can come out of the stealth.
So, in your journey so far, right, since you left your full-time job to starting this, what were the challenges that you have encountered so far, and what are your learnings from that? I know challenges are inevitable part of a startup journey, right? So, what were some of the prominent one for you?
So I would give you a personal story, right? Every morning I wake up and I basically crush my ego with my shoes, like literally making that move of rolling your shoes like you do a cigarette butt, because that's when I get started. I know that I'm gonna face a lot of rejection.
Yes.
I know that there will be sometimes embarrassments, right? There will be unreasonable demand of sometimes your own employees. So I've made myself a promise that ego is the last thing that will come in my way of executing my business, right? And you literally have to be very mindful of that because it creeps in. So I think that is one. Somebody told me before I was starting or thinking of starting my own business that they said in their opinion of entrepreneurs, if you can stay in the game long enough, there are very few people who have lost money then compared to their day job. Not, you're not comparing with a $1 billion exit, but just compare it with their day job. But you have to take a lot of bruises to your ego. So if you're willing to do that, then it's literally a matter of time. When do you want to take that plunge? So I think that is one part, one challenge, and one personal learning that has helped me a lot.
So if someone doesn't answer your email or your phone call, do you call them back again, or do you like, okay, no, this person has not answered me, I'm not going to call this?
Yeah, I think I do call with a different perspective. Because I also want to be mindful that if somebody is not willing to respond, or I don't want to go into their privacy and pester them. But if somebody is just missing out because we are all busy for genuine reason, I would definitely go back with a different message, with a different angle, and maybe a different channel to reach out to them, so that at least we can connect, because that's when things get started. I think in this startup world, what I have realized is it's not so brutal as people think.
Yep.
It is very supportive. I have met a lot of clients, entrepreneurs, make friends in this process, who are very willing to support you, right? I think you just have to be out there, and you have to be respectful of everybody else's time. That's about it.
No, that's very, very true. I've seen a lot of people who are willing to help me, and sometimes people just don't have time, right? It also depends on your day. Maybe you had a bad day, you don't want to respond to an email, but that doesn't mean they are not willing to help you out, right? So it doesn't harm to reach out to them again, ask, and you'll find, I've rarely seen anyone in my last 3 years journey who said like, stop reaching out to me, or like, I don't want to hear you. There were a few people, right? But those like probably 5%, right?
Exactly.
Either 50% were neutral, they were not willing to respond, but 30-40% were always willing to help, right?
Exactly. And if you're being persistent, then people do pay attention.
They do pay attention. Now let's talk about Silicon Valley funding game, right? Silicon Valley is so much famous about raising funds, probably raising at a crazy valuation. How's been your fundraising journey so far? Have you even tried raising funds?
So we are bootstrapped as of yet, but very soon we will be launching our capital raise process. Right, we'll be raising a seed round. I have also seen the funding process in my other life, sell side process or buy side processes of buying companies or raising capital. I'm sure it's going to be very different this time as an entrepreneur. So really looking forward to that. I think there are different sides and different theories about whether you should raise fund or not. It is literally a matter of personal belief, I would say, and leave it at that.
No, definitely. And right now, as everyone knows, like the venture capital market is not that great, right? So probably 3x, 4x effort would be required, right? And I've seen some people who have still raised at a good valuation,
right?
But for some of those, like it's not an easy journey, right? So far.
It's also a good, test of your idea and your team and your vision. If you're able to raise capital, right? And it's also sometimes who are you raising capital with? Those questions are important. Are those what is their operating thesis? What is their vision for the space that you're operating in, right? And who is the VC partner that you're going to be working with, right? What is their operating style? There are many such questions. And what technology are you working on? What are you bringing to the table? Are you bringing an idea? You're bringing a semblance of a business case with active clients and with an MVP. I think all those things matter, and how you present your story, and how can you convince somebody else to put their money onto your business and convince them that you're going to stay for long no matter what.
I think one good thing that has happened with this, what they called venture capital winter timing, is that there is a lot of market correction that has happened in terms of salary of people.
Right.
I remember a time in 2022 when I reached out to like a recent graduate, like for a software developer entry level position, and he literally asked me like 20 lakh rupees, 30 lakh rupees, like an entry level person. Back in India, people were asking like 60, 70 lakh with like few years of experience. Here in Silicon Valley, people were asking like $300,000 to $400,000 for like literally 3 to 4 years of experience. Absolutely unaffordable for a lot of bootstrapping startups, right? That has corrected a lot.
Right.
But one negative thing that it has brought with itself is now those people, they are not willing to go back to the lower salaries. Because they got say $300,000, it's very difficult for them to go back to $120,000, $130,000 and get started again.
That's about right. And people don't want to go back to their, what was the earlier market norm. And in some sense, you see market catching up, right? Like all the expenses we do has literally gone up by 50% ever since I came here in the Bay Area, maybe more, right? So I think that's also in some sense inflationary trend. It will create a lot of supply demand gap, especially in the technology sector. It will be interesting. I think I have a strong belief that there will be new set of companies with a revised expectation, a revised cap table, and a much finer and long-term vision which will be created out of this recession. And VCs will be more, interested in investing in these compelling cases, and you probably see that already happening.
So what's your long-term vision for your company as well as for your personal entrepreneurial journey? How do you see it from this point, right? It's been, I think, 10-12 months that you're full-time into this thing. Right? How do you see it, right? If things work out, that's great, but what if they don't go as you...
So I haven't really thought through about what if it doesn't go as per my plan, because I have a strong belief that it will, and if it doesn't, then of course there are ways and things I know how to execute, and will pivot around it, and like everybody else. At this moment, it is all about how to get this idea to the ground, get it to as many customers, get to product market fit. Right? So our vision is basically to provide a simple platform using generative AI, which provide the buying signals to salespeople from small and medium businesses, especially in complex industries like ESGs or supply chain, right? Where the learning curve of a salesperson is steep, and they need to take a couple of years before really becoming productive, before talking about the business language their buyers might be interested in. So we want to fast track that journey and make this process very simple for small and medium businesses in United States to offer this to their client. I think we want to use this vision to develop a company with strong principles, profitable P&L over a period of time, and something that can scale to a certain size. I don't want to quote a number because it will be pretty unrealistic at this point of time, but the way I envision it is it will be a company which is going to have healthy revenue growth, aggressive customer acquisition, as well as profitable P&L, with employees who are working with a sense of fulfillment, and people who will be really excited and feel they belong to this place and are adding value to their personal life and professional lives.
No, I think that would be amazing. And buying signals, they are always important for any company you talk about. Manish, whenever I think about sales process, and because as a founder, I also act as a salesman a lot of times, or almost like every other day, right? All of us do. I always think about, can there be some type of glasses or anything that we go out and market, or wherever we are, suppose in our day, and we see someone, and can we analyze and see, okay, who this person is, if we can get their LinkedIn profile, because sometimes we are surrounded by so many potential customers or people that we want to network, but we have no idea who this person is. And I always think, would there be a product anytime in the future where we can see, okay, this person is head of strategy of this company, okay, something I should go and talk to.
As long as they are willing to market themselves, because
we have everyone's picture on LinkedIn, no?
Right.
Something can be created in this way.
I think it's an interesting thought, and if people are willing to be open to communicate that through their signals, that I am somebody, and here's what I'm looking for.
Come and talk to me.
Come and talk to me, right? Then why not? You can actually establish these signals.
So now in the process of building UpRev, you may have hired a few team members. You will be hiring a lot of people in the future.
Right.
What are the qualities that you look for while hiring someone apart from core technical skills, right? Those are certainly needed, right? But what do you think are the most important things that people should keep in mind while interviewing with companies?
So I think my formula or my framework is pretty simple. I look for three things. I want to make sure that whoever I'm hiring for this role is intelligent enough
Okay.
to fit into this role requirement, or would be intelligent enough soon, right? Not like 1 year down the line, but would be intelligent enough soon. I have a strong belief in human potential to grow and learn and and be there. Second is I look for drive, that I'm talking to somebody who wants to do great things and bring new fresh ideas, and I will be enjoying talking to them. They will enjoy talking to me and a couple of other member in my team. So is there a drive to perform and overperform? And third, we're still at an early stage, so for us to define culture and values will come later. Third is ethics,
Yep.
right? And it's hard to measure, but if I see any red flag related to ethics, then it's a big no for me.
Yep.
Right? I think these are three important parameters that I look for as a startup founder. But I believe once we scale up, we will add the fourth pillar, which is values, right? As to we define our values in a certain way, and we want to make sure that there is a greater fitment. And I've literally seen companies and team failing just because you hired a brilliant jerk.
I mean, I couldn't agree more on this, and I think it's difficult to understand the importance of this fourth quality until you reach at a certain point.
Right.
After being in the business for 3 years, right, having 70 full-time team members, I've learned that never hire a very smart person without very strong or good values. I mean, we did hire some of the people, they were amazing. I mean, their skills were simply amazing, right? Best of everyone. But the attitude wasn't that great, and it was most difficult to deal with them. Now, whenever we interview people, the first thing that we look for, okay, is this person good enough to work with like 70 other people in the company? So absolutely is spot on there.
Yep.
Okay. So last question, Manish, what's your advice for someone who wants to get started, probably working on their idea right now? What are 2-3 learnings that you have acquired in your journey so far that would help people at least survive in the game, get started and survive for at least a few years?
So I'll start with a famous quote from Steve Jobs. Always look for the customer experience, start from there. Never start with technology. Use technology to work backwards as to how do you improve that customer experience. So it's very important to understand, if you are working on a startup idea, who are going to be your clients. And when I say understand, I mean you literally need to filter in what segment, what geography, who's going to be the buyer, what kind of size you're looking at, right? What kind of buyer persona you're looking at. So literally keep segmenting and understand and get that right. And if you can convince a couple of user persona, your ideal user persona, to sponsor your idea, there is nothing like that. Don't start writing code initially. Don't start writing or start building your product, right? I think what is important is to get real user feedback, ask them what is their problem or pain statement, work towards that, right? That is the most important learning. Don't go into fancy organizational building, team building and PowerPoint, and don't think about those things, right? They all come later. They exist for a reason, that you want to do the basic economic activity of growing your business at scale, right? If you can't establish the basic economic activity, that there is a client who has a pain and you exist to serve that pain, right? And you can do that in a repeatable manner for a segment of clients or a cohort of clients, and that cohort is big enough for the next couple of years for you to spend your time, right? If you can establish that, then once you scale, you need all of that. All the support function, all the different marketing machinery and everything, but that comes later. The first part is the fundamental problem statement alignment. That's where most of the people get it wrong.
Yep.
So if you can establish that, everything else you learn and you'll know, right? Because once you've understood the problem, problems have these unique ways of taking you to the solution.
Yep.
So you just need to get it right. Spend time with the problem.
This is very, very helpful, Manish. So much for your time, for sharing your insights. I've learned personally a lot of things, right, in our conversation, and I think it will be very, very helpful for all of our listeners, right? People who want to start their journey, right, or who've already started and trying to probably survive. So thank you so much.
Aditya. It was a pleasure talking to you, and I think more than anything else, I enjoyed our discussion.
Yeah, yeah.